Okay, so what happens when a team is so good, so successful, that their greatest strength, all their collective knowledge, suddenly becomes their biggest weakness? We're going to break down how one of the most elite teams out there realized their own success was secretly slowing them down, and how they basically hacked their own AI's brain to get that performance edge back. Let's get into it.
So, let's talk about this unicorn team. You know, these are the folks who are the absolute best of the best. Super specialized, crazy efficient. You'd think a team like this would be bulletproof, right? But what we're about to see is a classic story. Their own success was creating a massive problem, one they couldn't see at first.
And that really gets you thinking, doesn't it? I mean, what do you do when the very thing that made you great starts to drag you down? It's a huge problem, and it's exactly what this team was up against. Let's see how they cracked it.
All right, so who is this unicorn team, really? Well, they're a highly specialized AI development group, and you gotta understand their structure to really get what went wrong and how they made it right.
They're part of a company called Unicorn Tech Integration. And these guys operate with, like, surgical precision. For them, everything, and I mean everything, is about structure, efficiency, and making sure everyone has a clearly defined role. And check out this organization. It's pretty impressive. You've got Overseer running the whole show, handling the big picture. Monolith keeps the foundation rock solid. Syndicate is all about speed. Arcade tackles the really creative, complex stuff. And then there's Cypher, the specialists who dive deep when things go sideways. Every single team has a critical job. Now, the thing that holds all of this together is this single file, Claude.md. You really need to think of this as the team's collective brain poured into a text file. It's the AI's DNA. It's got every rule, every protocol, every lesson they've ever learned. It is, for all intents and purposes, the brain of the entire operation. And that brain, wow, is it massive. We are talking 1,625 lines of just dense, critical information, all of it crammed into one file. And right there, that's where the trouble starts. You see, having a big brain sounds great, right? Well, not always. Not when there's no room left to actually think. The team started to notice that their super powerful AI was getting kind of sluggish, less effective. And the problem wasn't the knowledge itself, but how the AI had to use it. And this all comes down to a super important concept for anyone working with AI. It's called the context window. The easiest way to think about it is like an AI's short-term memory or its mental scratch pad. It's the space it uses to hold your instructions, look at the code it's working on, and actually figure things out. But here's the most important word: finite. There's only so much room in there. And listen to this. The team's lead technologist put it perfectly. He said that every single time they started a new task, the AI had to first read that entire 1,625-line rulebook from top to bottom. This was just devouring its working memory before it even wrote a single line of code. The impact was, well, it was staggering. About half, 50% of the AI's total thinking space was being used up just loading its own instructions. Can you imagine that? It's like trying to run a marathon, but you have to start with a 50-pound weight strapped to your back. That's what their AI was doing every single time. You know, here's another way to think about it. Imagine you have a tiny little desk, and before you can do any work, you have to pile every single textbook and manual you own right in the middle of it. You're left with this tiny little corner to actually do your job. That was the reality for their AI. So what do? Just delete all those important rules? No way. Every line was a lesson they had learned the hard way. The solution wasn't to give the AI amnesia, it was to give it a library card. They had to organize, not delete. And their approach was just so smart and methodical. Step 1, analyze every single line, all 1,625 of them. Step 2, categorize everything. What's absolutely essential all the time, and what's only needed for very specific jobs. And then finally, step 3, build a brand new system based on what they learned. And what they came up with was brilliant. They called it hierarchical loading. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. The AI loads a very small set of core rules all the time, but all those other specialized policies, they're kept in separate files and are only pulled in on demand, exactly when they're needed for a specific task. And just look at the difference. It's night and day. On the left, you have the big, tangled mess they started with. And on the right, the new, streamlined system. The number of lines the AI had to load every time dropped from over 1,600 to just about 250. And that massive 50% memory tax, it plummeted down to a tiny 8%. So, after all that hard work, what did this incredible restructuring actually get them? Well, the payoff was nothing short of a game changer. Get this, a 42% increase in the AI's available working space. That is just huge. By simply reorganizing their knowledge, they gave their AI a massive boost in raw brain power. They didn't just make it faster, they literally made it smarter. And look, 42% isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. This translates to real-world power. It means more room for the AI to analyze really complex code, to write more sophisticated and elegant solutions, and just to have the mental breathing room to think more creatively. So what's the big lesson here? What really separates an average team from a truly elite top 0.1% team? It really all comes down to how they think about the systems they build for themselves. You can see the difference so clearly here. An average team just dumps everything into one giant file and kind of ignores the consequences. An elite team thinks like an architect. They build modular systems, they treat the AI's context window like the critical, precious resource it is. That mindset, that's the difference maker. So let's boil it all down. First, you have to proactively manage your knowledge base. You can't just let it grow wild. Second, always treat finite resources like an AI's memory with respect. Third, remember that great architecture is about smart organization, not just hoarding information. And finally, as this team proved, sometimes a small change in structure can unlock absolutely massive gains in performance. And that's the question I really want to leave you with. It's not just about AI, right? Think about your own teams, your own projects, even just your own personal workflows. How much of your true potential is being held back right now, just waiting to be unlocked by the very same rules you created to be successful in the first place?